Friday. Welcome. Good to see everyone. Call the meeting to order. Want to call the roll, please?
Of course, Mr. Chair. Secretary Chaudhry.
Present.
Mr. Derenberg.
Present.
Vice Chair Eberhardt.
I'm here.
Chuck Boyd as designee for Secretary Flora.
Present.
Mr. Gibbons is absent. Ms. Lala.
Here.
Krishna Talur as designee for Dr. Wright.
Here.
And Chair Casemeyer.
Here. Thank you.
You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Okey-doke. Any revisions or public comment today? Cassandra?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Alex, you want to do your executive director report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, good morning, and members of the commission. It's a pleasure to see you all today. This month, my executive director's report is short, comprised of a brief update on the progress of our discussion with Worcester County around its school facilities portfolio. Since my April trip to present to the Worcester County Commission and subsequently the Worcester County Board of Education, I and IAC staff have continued to engage with Worcester County officials around potential state support for school construction projects that Worcester County could undertake. Although the conversation began around Worcester County Public Schools' previously proposed Buckingham Elementary replacement project, it in fact directly connects to all of the school facilities capital needs of the school district, and potential strategies that the district and county might employ, and how the state could participate in the projects that would result from those strategies. I've offered IAC support for and participation in three-party discussions around how Worcester County might approach addressing its school facilities capital needs over the coming years. This is not special treatment for Worcester County. I've been out in multiple counties over the past year, meeting with school district and county officials, both separately and together, and offering such support and encouraging the kind of ongoing three-party coordination and collaboration that I have found to be necessary in today's school facilities world. I'm pleased to report today that the Worcester County Commission and the Worcester County Board of Education recently decided to convene over the coming months a three-party work group in which such conversations can take place. The first meeting is scheduled for July 8th, and I and IAC staff members will be driving out to Worcester County to participate and to contribute both available state data that are relevant to the discussion, as well as information about how school districts around the state are grappling with challenges similar to those that Worcester County faces. In addition, Worcester County Board of Education President Todd Ferrante recently wrote Chair Casemeyer a letter to explore a related question, and a response is on its way very soon to President Ferrante. I look forward to providing you with an update at your August meeting regarding the ongoing process with Worcester County, but I of course remain available by phone if you have any questions in the meantime about it. That concludes my executive director's report for today, and I'm happy to stand for any questions or to proceed with the consent agenda.
Any questions? I just want to say that hopefully we'll come to some agreement with Worcester County about their immediate plans for construction of what they need, but regardless, Alex and his staff have done a great job in, giving of their time and energies to try to make something work, and really going beyond what could typically be asked for. So I think they've done a great job. Go ahead, Alex.
I have one question.
Go ahead, Mike.
So how long has this been going on? When did they start? They sent an initial proposal for the school they wanted. Is that how it started, or?
It started around the initial proposal from Worcester County Public Schools in their request for not this past CIP, but the previous CIP. Okay. And so we've been discussing it with the school district over two CIP cycles and truly even before that. But the conversation has really broadened to be a three-party discussion in the last 6 months or so, and that is really bearing fruit. So I'm very pleased that this is great progress.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Alex.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 2, consent agenda. Items 2A through 2E are administrative items, including last month's minutes, contract awards, revisions to previously approved contracts, one correction to a project reversion, and one pass-through grant request that will award the remainder of funds allocated to Talbot County under the program. I expect that members will have noticed that the contract approvals item this month is a very significant chunk of the agenda. I would like to take a moment to say that our staff did a really exceptional job reviewing and preparing more than 50 contracts for approval when we typically see 20 or fewer in a month. There are a couple of reasons why there's so many contracts this month. The first is just the seasonal uptick in contract approval prior to summer as LEAs work to get their burst of summer facilities improvement work underway. In particular, the many HVAC and roof replacement projects that need to happen during the summer. Second is that it has been a couple of years since the cost of design services and of furniture, fixtures, and equipment became eligible for state participation. And so the projects with these costs included for state participation are starting now to come to fruition. This means that where the IAC used to review and approve just construction contracts, now we're seeing 3 or 4 contracts to every one that we would have approved just a few years ago. Our finance team and our capital projects managers worked extremely hard to review and get all of these contracts to you for approval, and I commend them for their hard work. We stand for questions on any of these items.
Any questions on the consent agenda? Do I hear a motion to support the consent agenda? Ms. Everhart, and second by Mr. Derenberg. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Raise your hands. Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Item number 3, maximum state allocation increase and award of reserve funds, Montgomery, Washington County Public Schools, North Hagerstown High, window and masonry replacement. Lisa?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the Commission. Washington County Public Schools informed the IAC staff on May 16, 2024, that the bids received for the North Hagerstown High School windows and masonry replacement project came in higher than anticipated. This project was originally estimated in the summer of 2021 and awarded funding in the FY23 CIP. Since that time, the market has experienced increases in manufacturing costs, transportation costs, labor, and inflation, all of which have contributed to this project coming in over the original budget. An additional $317,626 is needed for this project to move forward. Per COMAR 14390207, the IAC staff sets the maximum state allocation in the State Capital Improvement Program. The IAC may increase the maximum state allocation for a systemic renovation project when the LEA has available reserve funding and when the LEA submits the bid tabulation for the project and the IAC determines the requested scope of work is eligible for state funding and the scope of work and associated costs are reasonable. Staff of the IAC have reviewed the bid tab and are in full support of the LEA's request. I will now read the motion. The motion is to increase the maximum state allocation for the Washington County North Hagerstown High School window and masonry replacement project from $790,000 to $1,107,626 in accordance with COMAR 14390207 and to transfer $317,626 from the LEA's reserve funds to the FY 2023 Capital Improvement Program project. I can now stand for questions.
Do I hear a motion to that effect for purposes of discussion? Mr. Derenberg and Ms. Everhart seconds. Any questions for Lisa about this item? Okay. All in favor, raise your hands or say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Senator, you opposed? Senator Law, did you oppose?
No, I did not. I said aye.
Okay, sorry. All right, all in favor. Thank you, Lisa. Appreciate it. Item 4, public-private partnership, Prince George's County Public Schools. Information only. Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members of the Commission, with me today is Assistant Attorney General Heidi Detterer, counsel to the IAC. As some of you may know, Maryland law has permitted for some years now a number of alternative financing methods for school construction. One of them is a public-private partnership known as P3. Although P3s have been employed by school facilities owners for years in Canada and the United Kingdom, they have not been employed much in the United States and not at all in Maryland until just the last handful of years. And there has been only one so far in Maryland, in Prince George's County. But a second one is now pending, also in Prince George's, to which the Maryland General Assembly has committed financial support and the IAC has a role to play in it. Next slide, please. For this reason, I will now provide an introductory briefing on P3s in general and the pending Prince George's P3 specifically in order to help you prepare for the coming process of reviewing and approving this P3. The IAC has two primary functions under the laws that provide for this particular P3. The first is to enter into a memorandum of understanding, or an MOU, with PGCPS, Prince George's County, and the Maryland Stadium Authority, through which most of the state's financial contributions will flow. The second main task is to review and approve the contract or project agreement between PGCPS and the private developer who will deliver the schools. IAC staff have both documents in nearly final form and have been evaluating them over the past weeks and months. Our evaluation is still in progress, but we believe that the program is on the right path and that we will be able to bring both documents in final form to you within the next week or two for review, in advance of scheduling them for your approval on July 11th at next month's meeting. Next slide, please. First, let's look at what a P3 for school construction is in Maryland. Our statutes say that a P3 is an agreement in which a county board of education contracts with a private entity for the acquisition, design, construction, improvement, renovation, expansion, equipping, or financing of a public school. It may include provisions for operation and maintenance, cooperative use, and generation of revenue. And this is one of 7 alternative financing methods available to school districts under Maryland law. Next slide, please. The first P3 in Maryland was Prince George's County Public Schools Phase 1. And this first P3, which began in planning around 2019, was completely locally funded. It was a DBFM, or Design, Build, Finance, Maintain model over a 30-year term in which the developer takes care of the functions mentioned here. PGCPS continues to operate the buildings, including custodial, and retains ownership. And this first P3 resulted in 5 new middle schools and 1 new K-8 school that were open in the last 2 years in Prince George's. I've been to a couple of them. They're really lovely new buildings and a huge addition to the Prince George's portfolio. Next slide, please. The P3 at hand now is Prince George's Phase 2 P3, which, unlike the first one, this one will receive state funding and so has specific parameters established in statute. The law states that this P3 shall, over the time period of the 30 years, encompass a minimum of 8 schools in which will be improved, constructed, or renovated and operated and maintained under the P3 agreement, including 1 school for which a structural engineer has identified that it needs replacement due to faulty steel. Those 8 schools were identified, and the package has been formulated and a developer selected. Next slide, please. This second P3 is different from the first in that it's paid for with a mix of state and county funds. It's similar to the first in that it is, again, a design, build, finance, maintain model over a 30-year term in which PGCPS retains ownership of the properties. But of course, it covers the 8 schools versus 6 new elementaries, and 2 new pre-K-8s to open in a staggered schedule over a 3-year period. Next slide, please. Under the law, the IAC's role includes 4 activities over time. The first is to review, but not approve, individual projects prior to commencement of the project. The IAC may provide comment to PGCPS and document or report any ongoing unresolved issues to the legislature. Second, the IAC is required to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the county, the school district, and the stadium authority that specifies the rights, roles, terms, and responsibilities of each party. And one key thing here is that because this is an alternative financing method that is established in law in order to expedite the procurement of new school buildings, most of the states, meaning the IACs and the state superintendents and State Board of Education's laws and regulations around school construction projects are expressly made inapplicable to this state-funded P3. Third, the IAC is to approve, but not be a party to, the project agreement between PGCPS and the private developer. The IAC also must approve any subsequent amendments that those two parties make to their agreement going forward. And finally, the ongoing responsibility after this year for the IAC is really just an administrative one, and that's to administer the fund that will hold both the state dollars and the county dollars to ensure that all required deposits are made, the project agreement is still in effect before any annual payments are made to PGCPS to pay the developer. And that requires holding the money in a segregated account, and PGCPS may only use the funds from that account to pay the developer for costs associated with the P3. No other projects may benefit from this. And the fund transfers happen every year for the 30-year period.
You want to say how much money?
Yes, I will do that on a coming slide where we can actually look at the dollars. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes. Okay, next slide, please. All right, this slide summarizes where we are with each of these activities. I apologize for the small fine print here, but wanted to get in a little bit of notes for you on the current status. The process began last spring when PGCPS submitted to IAC staff a set of proposed projects, and IAC staff evaluated them for need and value to the PGCPS portfolio and found the package of 8 to be very well supported as needed projects within PGCPS's portfolio. We also found that if PGCPS were to conduct these 8 projects, the improvements that would result, at least in as much improvement and benefit to the PGCPS portfolio as replacing the 8 schools that were rated in our data sets as being the most depleted condition schools in the county. Then last fall, PGCPS began providing to the IAC staff information on their processes for programming the buildings, planning the facilities, providing requirements to the selected developer and its design team, and designing the buildings. Our review of these processes are nearly complete, and we are targeting June 24th for providing our recommendation to you for approval. Next is the MOU. This is the governing agreement for the program, crafted within the requirements set forth in statute. The MOU is about 98% negotiated at this point. The final draft is under review by staff, and we expect to have it ready to send to you by June 24th, and then we'll bring it for approval by you at the July 11th meeting. Third is the project agreement. It is in a similar state of readiness, about 98% complete. Final drafts are under review by staff, and we also intend to bring that to you for review by June 24th and then for approval at the July meeting. Finally, after the launch of the program, the IAC's main role will be as a steward of the funds the PGCPS will use to pay the developer during the 30-year term of the agreement. IAC staff are in the process now of establishing a bank account to hold what's called the P3 fund. Each year, the IAC will collect in that account the county contribution and the state contribution. Then, after checking to ensure that the statutory conditions for payout to PGCPS have been met, the IAC will disburse the funds to PGCPS for use in paying the invoices from the developer. In short, if the contractual arrangement continues as designed, the IAC disburses the funds. But if the deal lapses, the IAC would stop paying out the state funds. The IAC has received some initial funds in its FY 2025 budget, so we are ready to begin this process this fall after the PA is executed. Next slide, please. And this is our final slide. Funding. How much will this cost? Well, one benefit of a P3 is that the total price tag is basically determined upfront and is spread across 30 years of annual availability payments that are known and can be budgeted for, assuming neither party incurs any penalties for noncompliance. In this case, PGCPS and the developer are negotiating a set of payments now, and the final numbers will be finalized very soon. Under the law, the state is providing a fixed amount of funding, $864 million, which is made up of $54 million initial state investment on the front end, plus $27 million per year for 30 years. Any costs above that are the responsibility of the county, which is currently estimating about $42 million a year, with an escalation percentage applied over time to cover inflationary components. The total of those funds is expected to be in the ballpark of 1.2 billion. Finally, there will be about 44 million in interest income on the state and county contributions accrued while held by PGCPS that will be applied to the cost. The total cost over 30 years will be just over $2 billion for the 8 schools, which will be essentially handed back to PGCPS at the end of the 30-year period with a specified additional useful lifespan of a number of years that should provide PGCPS with another 2 decades plus of good service from those 8 buildings. In this introduction, we have just scratched the surface of the program. Yes, it is a very complex arrangement, and the PA itself is more than 200 pages long and has hundreds of additional pages of appendices with a huge amount of detail. Staff will be providing you with more detail and documents in the coming 2 weeks. For now, this introduction has been intended to orient you to the nature of the P3 being undertaken by PGCPS and the IAC's limited role in helping it come into being and to operate over the coming 30 years. Heidi and I are happy to answer any questions you may have, but I would suggest that detailed questions might be best answered in the coming weeks after you have documents in your hand to which we can refer directly. This concludes my presentation, and I stand with Heidi for any questions you might have.
Mr. Derenberg.
So is it the same developer for all 8 schools?
It is, but it's not the same developer as for the first P3 of 6 schools.
Okay. And you brought up the interest. I know that was a question. What happened with the interest of the money that's been held?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite
You
hear you.
broke up a little bit, Mike.
We talked about the interest last time. Like what happens with the interest? Who gets the interest of the money that's being held by the state?
Yes, the interest is available to PGCPS to use because those are on funds held by PGCPS after the transfer from the IAC.
Those are that's their money.
Yes.
Also. Okay.
Yeah, we talked to legislative leadership regarding that issue to make sure to see what they wanted to do, and they both, House and Senate, assured us they wanted to do that. So that's what we ended up doing, agreeing to. Other questions? Again, I just want to say this has been a very complex project to organize and get ready, and I want to congratulate Alex and the staff for getting us to where we are. It's taken a lot of back and forth discussions, and it's been an incredible amount of work. So thank you to all the IAC staff. Any more questions before we move on? Okay. Item 5, gross area baseline variance, Wacomico County Public Schools, Fruitland Primary School. Sean?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the Commission. On February 15th, 2024, Wacomico County Public Schools submitted for IAC consideration a gross area baseline variance request for additional gross square footage for the Fruitland Primary School replacement project. This project was awarded design funding for the fiscal year 2025 capital improvement program. Under COMAR 1439-02-06E, the IAC may adjust the gross area baseline on a case-by-case basis. Staff analyzed the information provided by Wacomico County Public Schools, as well as other applicable documentation regarding the program requirements for the project, and found that additional square footage was warranted to support the project for the following reasons. Fruitland Primary serves only grades pre-K through 2. The IAC's 2023 GAB updates focused on traditional grade bands and did not address the less than 4% of elementary schools which only serve second grade and below. Fruitland Primary has additional space needs for serving younger students compared to an average pre-K through 5 elementary school, based on the fact that pre-K and kindergarten classrooms are typically larger than a standard elementary school classroom to accommodate curriculum requirements such as learning centers, imaginative play spaces, group instructional areas, and nap time cots. These educational requirements also necessitate additional educational equipment, which requires additional storage space. Also, the younger population requires additional toilet rooms, often with changing areas. This is included both in the dedicated in-classroom as well as core space restrooms. Because of these considerations, and based on analysis of the programmatic needs of the school, IAC staff recommended approval of an additional 4,858 gross square feet for the project, which results in an estimated increase to the maximum state allocation of $2,614,000 based on the IAC's current funding factors. I will now read the motion. The motion is to approve the gross area baseline variance for an additional 4,858 gross square feet at Wacomico County's Fruitland Primary School, PSC 22016, which increases the eligible building area from 81,064 to 85,925 gross square feet based on an eligible enrollment of 956 students. I will now stand for questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean.
Mhm.
Do I hear a motion to that effect for purposes of discussion? Secretary Chadri makes a motion, Ms. Everhart seconds. Any questions, discussion about this motion? All right, all in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, item 6 for discussion purposes only. We don't have to vote on it. FY 2025 Capital Improvement Program Supplemental Information Report. Julian Storms, who is the Executive Director of the Maryland State Department of Education Office of School Facilities, will make this presentation. Thank you, Julian.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the Commission. This following presentation shares the results of the annual supplemental survey that is collected during the CIP submission process and assembled by the Office of School Facilities. Information provided from the LEAs help differentiate their needs and capacities, capabilities, and determines the eligibility factor for a supplemental grant used in conjunction with the CIP. You may find this data also under item 6 in your agenda. The presentation will touch on such focus areas as air conditioning, open space instructional areas, security vestibules, design professionals on staff, and relocatable classrooms. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have at the end of the presentation. So for many years, having sufficient air conditioning in schools was a major concern. 20 years ago, only 78% of Maryland schools had air conditioning. Now, 98% of our schools do. For that reason, 4 years ago, we switched to surveying not the number of schools, but the number of classrooms without air conditioning, or also termed AC. Note that by AC, we means that spaces are cooled by either central air systems or package unit, or even a window air conditioning unit. So in this next table, you will see that in 4 remaining LEAs, there are a total of 438 classrooms in 20 schools without AC. In 3 years' time, with the current planned systemic renovation or replacement capital projects, only a little more than 50 classrooms in 11 schools throughout the state will have AC that still needs to be addressed. Next, the second area we examined is open space instructional areas. These type spaces were where class instructional areas are only separated by a partial height wall or makeshift bookshelves were popular in the 1960s and the 70s and have fallen out of favor due to the lack of adequate acoustical separation and areas of refuge during emergencies. In this next table, we will see that 109 schools in 16 LEAs have open space instructional areas. The ones colored have 10 or more schools in that school system with open space instructional areas, with the greatest numbers can be found in Baltimore County, Frederick County, Washington County, Howard County, and Baltimore City. Next, providing sufficient security measures in schools has become a pressing issue, particularly in the last 15 years. Security vestibules have become a popular method to screen and redirect visitors to the administration staff before entering the school proper. The School Safety Grant Program, which began in 2018, provides funds for such improvements. In the table, next table, you will see in Maryland, there are a total of 600 schools in 17 LEAs that do not have an entrance security vestibule. Plans are in place to add this to 93 schools in the next 3 years. You'll see there are 7 LEAs not listed in this table, as well as a table that's in your agenda item. Just note that this is because they have all their schools have security vestibules, so we're not tracking those. But I do think it's important to let the commission know that all school systems have security measures in place to prevent unauthorized entry into their schools, even if they don't have a security vestibule. So I think we have 2 remaining areas we studied. LEAs in Maryland differ greatly in the amount of expertise on staff to plan, develop, and evaluate school designs done by their consultants. We surveyed 4 categories of professionals: registered architects, registered engineers, certified planners, and lead accredited professionals, which stands for leadership and energy environmental design. It indicates a specialized training in high performance and sustainability issues. So the data in this table shows that there are a total of 44 planning and design professionals in Maryland's 24 LEAs, with Baltimore, Montgomery, and Arundel County employing the greatest number. The 10 LEAs highlighted in peach have no planning or design professionals on staff, so that the 18 professionals in the 4 state agencies involved in public school planning and construction, which is namely the IAC, the Maryland Department of Planning, the Maryland Department of Education, and the Maryland Department of General Services, they help play an important role in assisting and guiding these LEAs with their capital planning and school construction efforts. Our agency, the Maryland Department of Education, for instance, currently has 6 licensed architects on staff serving this effort. The last category we surveyed was regarding relocatables, which are these pre-manufactured portable units installed on school sites, usually as a means to handle enrollment growth before a new school or an addition can be built, or to temporarily house classrooms displaced at an existing school facility that's undergoing renovation. In the 23-24 school year, we find that there are 2,843 relocatable classrooms in use, which is actually a 156 classroom decrease from last year, with the most usage found in Prince George's County, Montgomery, Baltimore, and Charles counties. Not shown are the 3 counties of Allegheny, Kent, and Talbot, with no usage of relocatable classrooms at all. Next slide is what we have is a 5-year usage. In the bar chart, you can see each bar represents a year. So you can see over the past 5-year period that most counties experience slight fluctuations in their relocatable classroom usage, with Prince George's County and Montgomery counties consistently employing the greatest number. Next slide looks at this data slightly differently. this is comparing the estimated number of students, percentage of students being taught in relocatable classrooms compared to within the school building. We see in Charles County consistently has the highest number of its students being taught in relocatable classrooms within their school district, except for the one peak in Waikamaco that they temporarily experienced when a lot of their schools underwent federally supported construction projects to improve the air quality of their learning environments. Next slide. In the table, you can see this is a critical table for the IAC, which is one of the reasons why we're actually handing over this duty to the IAC in future years, so that they could best manage this process and so it's done in a timely manner to their decision making. So in this table, what you're looking at helps decide what the EGRC supplemental grant. Which counties are eligible for that. EGRC stands for Enrollment Growth and Relocatable Classrooms. And any school system with over a 5-year average of 250 or more relocatable classrooms in use qualify for this grant. And data shows that the same 5 counties, Baltimore, Charles, Montgomery, and Prince George's, well, that's 4, sorry, same 4 counties, will again be eligible for these funds in next year's CIP. And then the last final slide captures one concerning aspect of relocatable usage. That 16% of the relocatable classrooms are in portables that are over 30 years in age, which is hardly temporary usage. In part, this is due to the average age of the state-owned inventory being 44 years, as the IAC has not purchased a relocatable since 1990. And there are about 100 out of the 122 state relocatables in use as classrooms throughout the state currently. And this completes our report. I will now stand for questions.
Very interesting, Jillian. Thank you. Questions for Jillian? Mr. Derenberg.
For the grant, that EGRT grant, that just goes towards new school construction?
I believe that it is only used with the CIP program. And yes, it's very much part of the new construction, although Alex or someone from the IAC would need to clarify if it can be used at all with a renovation. I don't know that.
So the EGRC funds can be applied to a number of different project types, but essentially the purpose of those funds is to address utilization challenges in schools that have been using relocatables in order to serve the students that they need to accommodate, and to assist in bringing the capacity to where it's needed. And so that's how we look to assist the school districts with those dollars.
Can they use it to buy new relocatables?
Technically, yes. However, most of the school districts in the state have accordingly been looking to phase out relocatables wherever possible. And that is why the state fleet of relocatables has been shrinking consistently over the years. We've been simply retiring them when a school district no longer needs a state relocatable. And in just the last year, we've had a couple of disposals of older relocatables after they became not needed anymore.
So what's the EGRC money do exactly?
It's to add to the available CIP dollars for those districts facing enrollment pressures and or that are working to retire their relocatables so that they can conduct the school building improvements needed to accommodate those students without using the relocatables.
So it's not going to upgrade or buy any new relocatables.
No, that's not been any LEA's desire.
Okay, Krishna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have a question, but just wanted to make one comment to thank Jillian and team for for having done this survey and continuing to assist IAC through this process over the years. A lot of work goes into it and a good presentation. Also, as Jillian mentioned, due to the close correlation of the data being used in the CIP decisions that IAC makes, the survey will be integrated as part of the other processes that Alex and team does, and our team in MSDE stands ready to assist or support wherever and as needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Jillian? Thank you, Jillian. It's very interesting. Thank you for
Thank you.
presenting the information.
Okay.
Take care. Okay, item number 7, Built to Learn funding request, Montgomery County Public Schools, Joanne Lelik Elementary School at Broad Acres replacement. Sharon?
Good morning, Mr. Chair,
Morning.
Madam Vice President, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the Commission. My name is Sharon Johnson. The Build to Learn Act of 2020, effective since February 12, 2021, empowers the Maryland Stadium Authority to issue revenue bonds to finance school construction projects with an estimate $1.7 billion in total available funding. On a rolling basis, the Interagency Commission on School Construction oversees project eligibility and approval of project submissions. Under the Build to Learn Act, Montgomery County Public Schools can receive 150% of the gross area baseline for projects. MCPS requested Build to Learn funding for a replacement facility spanning 124,976 gross square feet and the demolition of 78,275 gross square feet of the existing structure to accommodate 925 students. Due to available capacity in adjacent schools, IAC staff are recommending support based on 66 eligible students, as well as additional square footage to support community services and programming for a high percentage of English learners. With the state covering 65% of eligible costs, including state cost share and add-ons for construction of property and maintenance effectiveness, the maximum state allocation for this project is $8,048,000. I will now read the motion, which is to approve Montgomery County Public Schools' request for Built to Learn construction funding for the Joanne Lelik Elementary School at Broad Acres replacement project totaling in $8,048,000. I will introduce the CPM, Jean Shanholtz, to stand for any project-related questions.
Thank you, Sharon. Do I hear a motion to that effect for purposes of discussion?
So moved.
And second by Mr. Boyd. Questions for Sharon or Jean? Hey, all in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? Thank you. Number 8, Built to Learn funding requests in FY 2025 Capital Improvement Program maximum state allocation revision to Montgomery County Public Schools, Crown High School. Sharon? And Jean.
Montgomery County Public School was awarded funding in FY 25 CIP of $27,680,907 for construction of the new Crown High School, spanning 358,009 gross square feet, to serve a student body of 2,219. In addition, MCPS has submitted a request to apply for their remaining BTL balance in the amount of $42,008,500 to this project. Since MCPS is eligible for 150% of the gross area baseline for the portion of the project funded by BTL, the eligible square foot for the project increases, and as a result, it is an increase in the maximum state allocation from the original $92,082,000 identified in the FY 25 CIP to $98,281,000. IAC staff recommend to adjust the maximum state allocation to accurately reflect the blending of the two funding programs and approve the allocation of $42,008,500 in BTO funding for the project. I will now read the motion. To approve Montgomery County Public Schools request for Built to Learn funding, construction funding for the new Crown High School, totaling in $42,008,500, and to amend the FY25 Capital Improvement Program to reflect the maximum state allocation of $98,281,000. Jean is a CPM and is available for any project-related questions.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to that effect? Purposes of discussion. Ms. Everhart, Mr. Boyd seconds. Discussion, questions? All in favor of the motion, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? Thank you, Sharon and Jean. We appreciate it. Number 9, non-public aging school program procedure revisions and exception approvals. Cassandra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. The IAC executes the non-public aging schools program and the non-public school safety programs in partnership with the Maryland State Department of Education, OSF, who you just heard give a great presentation about the CIP survey. The IAC adopts procedures each year to govern these programs. We've had a lot of changes in staffing, as the members know, in our IAC finance division and at OSF. And of course, the non-public schools also have experienced their own changes in staffing. And there were some communications that maybe weren't totally clear, where the non-publics knew exactly what was expected of them. So we're proposing just a little bit of cleanup to the procedures and some exceptions for some project reimbursement requests that we've received. We do recommend that the commission allow for delegated authority to the OSF executive director to grant exceptions in a few specific situations and to revise the program's procedures in order to simplify the process for scope changes, which is what this item does. I do want to take a second before I read what is a very lengthy motion to thank Jillian and Krishna, who have been just excellent partners in executing this. The reason that OSF executes this, Mr. Chair, is because a prerequisite for program through the funding is that the non-publics be eligible for the aid to textbook program administered by MSDE. And of course, MSDE has contacts with the non-public schools that the IAC doesn't, since our primary customers are the LEAs. So this is really a great collaboration that leverages the assets of both agencies. With that, Mr. Chair, I will read the very lengthy motion. Please bear with me. To allow the executive director of the MSDE OSF to review exceptions to the non-public aging schools program FY 23, 22, 21, and 20, and the non-public school safety grants FY 21 procedures requirement that grant recipients may submit only one invoice for reimbursement for projects that have received reimbursement prior to the date of this action. To allow the executive director of the MSDE OSF to grant extensions to the deadline for grant recipients to submit the request for reimbursement form to MSDE OSF for the FY 2021 and 22 NASP cycles and for the FY 21 and NPSI cycle to no later than July 31st, 2024, and to revise all annual NASP and NPSI procedures to omit the requirement that scope changes be submitted to the MSDE OSF prior to contract approval, and to instead require that in the event of scope changes awarded to projects for these cycles, grant recipients should provide to the MSDE OSF staff a written request that includes the reason for the change at the time of or prior to the reimbursement request. New project scopes must still be among the scopes eligible for the program.
Take a deep breath.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Do we hear a motion to that effect? Mr. Boyd, second by Ms. Everhart. Any questions? How many schools participated in this grant program last year? I mean, how many different schools received funding?
It's a very good question, Mr. Chair. Jillian, do you have that number at your fingertips?
I know that my coworker Myron does. Myron,
Right.
can you pull that
So
up?
for FY23 or FY24?
FY24.
FY24. So one moment, for FY24, approximately 187.
Oh, good. Ms. Everhart,
How much money do we spend, the state spends on the non-public schools?
Every year, the legislature appropriates 3.5 million.
Every,
oh,
Every fiscal year. It's 3.5 million total.
okay,
all in favor of the motion, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Cassandra.
Thank you.
Number 10, FY 2025 amendments to Aging Schools Program Administrative Procedures Guide. Cassandra?
The amended ASP procedures in your agenda clarify the design review requirements that ASP projects of various scopes are subject to prior to project execution. Because each project is reviewed and assigned an appropriate design review level based upon the project scope, these are really technical clarifications that don't substantively change the reviews that are currently taking place through the program. And fortunately for me, this is a very simple motion to amend the current administrative procedures guide for the Aging Schools program to reflect changes to the levels of design review required for certain types as presented.
Do I hear a motion to that effect? Mr. Boyd, second by Ms. Everhart. Any questions for Cassandra? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item 11, FY 2025 amendments to Healthy School Facility Fund Administrative Procedures Guide.
This one is even easier for me, Mr. Chair, because it's exactly the same as the last one, but for the Healthy Schools program instead of the Aging Schools program. The motion is to amend the Administrative Procedures Guide for the Healthy Schools Facility Fund to reflect changes to the levels of design review required for certain project types as presented.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to that effect? Mr. Derenberg, second by Mr. Boyd. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hands or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, item 12, adoption of final 14-39-02 COMAR revisions. Victoria.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and
Morning.
members of the Commission. My name is Victoria Howard. At the October 12th, 2023 IAC meeting, the Commission voted on an item which was recommended after months of work done by the IAC's Blueprint Work Group, and which dealt with proposed COMAR amendments to revise COMAR 143902 to incorporate gross area baseline add-ons by reference, specify means by which an LEA could utilize said add-ons to get additional state support, clarify the number of teaching stations and gymnasiums of varying sizes, and renumber existing COMAR regulations to accommodate these additions. The IAC passed this motion unanimously. IAC staff submitted these revisions, which subsequently were published in the Maryland Register for the requisite 30 days for public comment. IAC staff received no public comment on these revisions. These revisions are the same as were heard in October by the IAC, and this item's motion serves as final approval of these proposed changes prior to publication in COMAR. If approved, the revisions will be official 10 days after publication of final approval in the Maryland Register. I will now read the motion, which is to adopt the final COMAR revisions as published in the March 22nd, 2024 Maryland Register. That's volume 51, issue 6, pages 261 through 320.
Thank you, Victoria. Do I hear a motion to approve? Mr. Boyd, thank you, and Ms. Everhart seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, we've come to the end of the agenda. Does anyone have anything they want to bring up? Discuss. Announcements. Ms. Everhart, do you want to talk about the evaluation committee or your plans?
sure. Every year we have to do an evaluation of our executive director. An evaluation subcommittee, which I chaired last year, will continue with the same members. We plan to have 3 meetings between now and August and come back to the full commission with our recommendations, of course, with your input.
Any questions for Linda? Okay. Is Cassandra still available? Or Alex?
I am,
Cassandra,
Mr. Chair.
you want to talk about
Yes, Mr. Ch-
our open house?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we are inviting our partners and our commission members to an open house at the IAC in our new Maryland Stadium Authority offices on the afternoon. I just want to make sure I'm getting the date right, Mr. Chair, of the 26th.
Right.
And everyone should have already received that invitation.
Oh, good. Okay. Anything else anyone wants to say? I just want to repeat that the whole staff has done an incredible job with these Worcester County projects and the Prince George's P3 projects. It really it's amazing how much is involved in these things. I want to thank them for all they've done. Do I hear a motion we adjourned? Ms. Everhart, second by Mr. Derenberg. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. See you all next month. Thank you.